to tell us all about her, and we are going to dive right into this topic on today. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and let's dive in.
Thanks, Brianna, for having me. I'm really excited about sharing this topic as well. So I'm Dr. Jane Levesque. I'm a naturopathic doctor, and I specialize in fertility. So my goal is to help women feel more in control and more confident in their fertility journeys. That's the gist of it. There's a lot that you touched upon in terms of it's increasing. There is a lot more women are struggling with it. And that's really kind of why I stepped into the space, because as a naturopath, I stepped into naturopathic medicine because I had my own health issues like IBS and anxiety, and I was put on birth control and all of these things that my doctor never gave me an explanation for. It was just like, that's normal. There's nothing you could do about it. You're healthy. And, I couldn't lose my freshman 25 pounds after. It wasn't a freshman 15. It was a little bit more than that. And I was an active and what I considered a healthy person. And so to me, that was puzzling. And so that's how I started to go into the alternative route. And I stepped into fertility because I started to have kids myself. So getting pregnant, and the first time I got pregnant, there was no issues getting pregnant, but I was shocked of how difficult it was on my body and how tired and sick I was. And I had food poisoning case where I, lost a bunch of weight through my first trimester. And there was a lot of there's a lot more scare and nervousness because now it's not just you, right? You're worried about, am I going to lose the baby? And then my labor is the thing that did me in. I always imagined having a natural birth at home, and turns out I had no idea what I was doing. It turns out I didn't know how my pelvic floor worked, and I didn't know how to push. And it ended up being a very dramatic and very out of control experience, and it felt I was one push away from a C-section, and it took a lot away out of my power. It felt like I wasn't in the pregnancy, in the labor. I didn't understand. And therefore my connection with my baby was skewed because of that. I was really depleted and tired. And so I would say I had a bit of PTSD. And so then I was just like, hey, I wonder if we could do this better. And at this point in my practice, I was helping a ton of women with their menstrual cycles and fixing their digestive issues because they were worried about fertility, or they were starting to try and they were struggling. I had a family member who was struggling with infertility. And so it already I already started thinking about it like, hey, there's a lot we can do here to help women to prepare themselves for pregnancy. So it's not this big shocker, like, oh, you're pregnant. Cool, good luck. And it's like, well, who says that,
Right.
But it's true, right? It's just like, good luck. It's going to be like, this is just the beginning. So when I started to prepare my body, I did everything on the physical level that I could. So, I changed my workouts, I leaned out, I fixed my diet, I changed up a lot of stuff in my environment, cleaned it up. But my husband and I were not in a great place mentally and emotionally. We were moving, we had a lot of stress, but I was just like really stubborn and wanted to pencil it in. I want to give birth on this month. I want to get pregnant here. This is how it's going to work. And that pregnancy ended in a miscarriage. And that was a really big lesson of like, hey, did you really think you could just like pencil this whole thing in? Like it was just another thing on your checklist. And because I was sharing my experience through Instagram, I was sharing my story because I was like, look, I'm preparing for pregnancies. Here's what I'm doing. I realized that I was in a very vulnerable situation, but I didn't, I never expected to have a miscarriage. I just wanted to show women that, hey, if you prepare, this is what can happen.
Right.
And if you prepare, this is still what can happen. And so the community just really supported me through the miscarriage. I feel like I actually healed so much faster because of it. And so many women shared their stories about the amount of miscarriages they've had, the lack of support, the lack of knowledge and understanding they've had from the conventional medical system, and how alone they felt and they didn't know where to go. And that's when I was like, I think I can help here. I think that women are underserved in this community. I think women are taking advantage of a little bit in this community because it's so like the desire to have a child is so strong, and our worth is attached to our ability to have a child, that we're being pushed medication prescriptions without getting proper testing done. We're getting pushed into medical procedures without really fully explaining if they're going to work, how they're going to work, what we can do to optimize. There isn't not only is there no informed consent, but there isn't that education of like, what's happening with me? Why am I not able to do this thing that is the natural process, right? Pregnancy is a natural process. So that's my question is, well, when it's not happening, why? Why is it not happening? And so we have to dig deeper instead of just, well, let's take this medication and see if it works. Oh, didn't work. Okay, well, let's try this procedure and see if it works. It's like, guys, it's thousands and not, if not tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars for people that it's like, well, we could do better. We could do a little bit better,
Mm-hmm.
or a lot better.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, because I've heard horror stories of people who have spent, I think it's $10,000+ to go in for a procedure and then it not work.
For sure.
And then what then? Who has money just to, unless you're just, well off, but that's a handful of people, that are going and dealing with this, that has that type of money to just throw out there to come back and still not be pregnant. And
Yep.
that's painful, that's hurtful, and then I think sometimes it can even be traumatizing.
Oh, it's very traumatizing. I think there was a research study that showed what was, one of the worst experiences that people had in their life, and infertility is one of the top, if not the top. Like, it is the hardest thing that the couple goes through together, and it is one of the most traumatizing experiences that you could go through. But on the other hand, there are studies showing that women who feel supported through their fertility journey are 80% more likely to give birth to a live baby,
Mm.
80% more likely just by feeling supported. And so that's the thing that has to raise an eyebrow, to be like, so how many women do feel supported? How many women are waiting to go to a fertility specialist doctor just to be told, we don't know what's going on with you, sorry, on to the next, and like, that's heartbreaking, because the truth is most women, I think, deep down know that something is off, or it could be the couple, right? So it's researching, like, is it the male infertility factor, is it the female, or is it both? And unfortunately, the conventional medical system is really not built for that, and so it's heartbreaking and, like you said, traumatizing.
Yeah, yeah. I was speaking with a friend not too long ago, and we are talking about how many times that they had. I think they had two pregnancies. They ended in miscarriages, and then they tried several times and just couldn't do it. And then when you talk about the support, the husband plays such a significant role in this, because
Sure.
there are really some men, they might not say it, but their body language kind of suggests that, or makes a woman feel as though something is wrong with her, and maybe she's unattractive, or, and makes her feel as though she is not really being supported by her spouse, because, if I can't give him a baby, then,
Yep.
where are we going to go from now? Because this was one of the things we talked about prior to marriage, was having children, and now I can't produce this.
Sure. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure that I think women will put on themselves. And I mean, truthfully, if you don't feel supported by your husband through this, then you're asking deeper questions. Like, is this really the person that I want to be having children with? Because I
Mhm.
say there are 4 things that you need to have in order for a successful conception. And number 1 is you need a good quality egg. Number 2, you need a good quality sperm. Number 3, both partners need to have a strong desire to have a child with one another. And number 4 is the baby room needs to be ready. And now the baby room is not the room in the house that the baby is going to live in, but the first room that the baby is going to grow in, which is the womb, which is the uterus for the female. And we talked about this off camera a little bit, but we as women have to understand that our womb is the first place that the baby is going to grow in. So if we have issues, whether it's endometriosis, PCOS, fibroids, right, heavy, painful, crampy periods, that's a sign that our womb is not in a good place to host a baby that's going to thrive. So the lining of the uterus needs to be just right. It can't be too thin. It can't be too thick. You need to have good blood flow to the area. So you can't have a bunch of fibroids, you can't have a bunch of cysts that are blocking the blood flow to go in, because blood flow is life. That's how the baby's going to get all of their nutrients from you. And then if you take it from the mental and emotional component, we as women will store a lot of trauma in our womb.
Yes.
And that trauma could be anywhere from, I call it big T or little t. It could be big trauma like sexual assault, or it could be just a poor relationship with your mother or your father, it's, or whatever. And I mean, that it doesn't matter what it is. It's what is it that you're holding in there? And everyone is individual. Like, we're all unique snowflakes, and it's our job to help us. It's our job to dive into the body and be like, what are you trying to tell me here? What's wrong? Where is the imbalance? So you can, and then you'll probably need guidance, right? Because I've spent 10 years in school. I've spent 10 years trying to figure out, and, another 10 years continuing education hours, trying to figure out and understand how the body talks to us and how to balance it. And so if you're an accountant, you're just not going to know that information. And for you to go and, or a lawyer or whatever, it's like for you to go and just Google some things and say, oh, I probably need this supplement to help me. It's unlikely that you're going to get it right. I wish it was that simple, but it just isn't. I don't go to my mechanic and ask him to do my accounting for me, because he doesn't know what to look for. And so it's the same thing when you're going to the doctor to say, hey, I want prevention, or I want to have, you can look at infertility as a disease, but infertility, there's a root cause to it. And so it's not a complete diagnosis. When people say unexplained infertility, it's like, okay, well, digestion is bad. You're not sleeping well. You have a lot of stress. Your hormones are really low. Like, I think we can explain it, it's just, there isn't a diagnosis that the doctor has, and they don't have a pill for it. So they don't know what to do with you.
Yeah.
But, there's lots of other people who do know what to do with you. It's just a matter of finding them.
Yeah. This made me think about something we did discuss off camera the other day. Let's talk about the womb being prepared and some of the things that we house there. And like I was telling you earlier, that I had a discussion with my friend, and she was saying that, oh, I just discovered that you house your trauma in different parts of your body. And so we had a discussion about sometimes we house things that we didn't even go through ourselves.
Yes. Yeah.
Can you touch on that? I thought that was so interesting, and I think the audience really needs to understand that sometimes it's not us.
Yeah. Well, our beliefs, right? Sometimes it's not even sometimes, but a lot of the times, if you start just becoming aware of what are the voices in your head and what are some of the thoughts that are going through your head and some of the beliefs that you have about you, whose is that? Is that really yours, or is that somebody else's passed on? In one of the examples, I was on a podcast that this lady used, it's like she went to her mom and was like, hey mom, why do you bake like this? And it's like, oh, because my grandma used to do it like that. Then she went to the grandma and said, grandma, why do you bake this dish like that? She's like, oh, because my mom used to do it. And then it's, that there's certain behaviors and certain things that are just passed on just because that's how we used to do them. But that doesn't mean that we can't change that. You can absolutely change the way that you bake a cake. And so you can change the way that you think about yourself. You can change the environment, and you can change, you can release some of these old beliefs that are limiting you from living your best life. And I know sometimes that's a really hard concept to understand, but if you started to identify yourself as infertile, so I'm really careful to say that I'm not an infertility expert, I'm a fertility expert, because I want to show you your fertility potential, not show you that you're infertile. It's how we talk to ourselves is going to really, like, our body's constantly listening. And not even that it's listening, it's just that you're going to do certain actions then that are going to either be, towards your belief. So what is it that you believe about yourself? And sometimes those beliefs are really hard to break, but like we said before, it's generational. Sometimes it's not even yours. Like money is a really good example. If your parents, grew up in the war, there's a lot of scarcity when it comes around food. And then it's like, you can't even comprehend what it's like to make money. And then what is the belief around money? Oh, people who have money are evil, because maybe the place that you lived, people who had money, everybody you knew, didn't do good things with that money, and they exploited people. And so then now that's your belief. And now you're you're going to be in positions and jobs and you're not going to take promotions. And it's like, what do you mean I'm not going to take promotions? Well, you literally don't put yourself in situations where you're like, I don't need any more money.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay if you don't, but is that the reality for you?
That's
Right? Is
right.
that truly what you believe? So that, I find that that's a really good example.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, and I think that's a very good example because I hear people all the time talk about the negative, and they won't put them position themselves to be positive about their situation. And so, and like you said, well, my mother argued all the time, and so I can't help it. You can't help it. That's what she did. That's not what you have to do, you
Yeah.
know. Or my mother
It's a
had a.
lot of work. It's a lot of work.
It
It's a lot
is.
of awareness. It's a lot of mental energy because you
Mm-hmm.
have to develop new nervous system patterns, right? You have to
Mm-hmm.
develop that new behavior,
Mm-hmm.
but it's very much possible, you
Yeah. Oh
know?
yeah.
And when people say, oh, it's genetics and things are rising, and like you said at the beginning of the podcast, it's like, well, how come all of a sudden all of these women are struggling with endometriosis and PCOS and fibroids and all of the, autoimmune conditions? Is
Mm-hmm.
that really our biology changed, or has our environment changed?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's really to say that, yeah, it's genetics and that's just the way that I am. But now you've put yourself into a victim role. And now
Mm-hmm.
you've put yourself into a role like, I guess there's nothing I can do about it. And so you're not even going to notice it. The prime example of that, when you get a car, and let's say you get an orange car and you're like, I'm going to be the only orange car on the road.
Right.
And then guess what you notice? Every single other orange car on the
Mm-hmm.
road, because now you're paying attention to it. And so it
Mm-hmm.
works the same way. If you think that there's nothing I can do about it, you're literally never going to notice anything. That's like, here's a thing you can do about it. Here's the thing you can do about it. Here's a person that can help you. And you're like, oh, no, nobody can help me. Right. So you're
Mm-hmm.
just closing off that mindset.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't recognize your help when your help comes because,
Yes.
and it's like you feel as though you're unworthy, really. So you're
Yep.
unworthy of the help. Here's the help, and it's not even going to cost. It's cost effective, and
For sure.
so, but because you have felt and you have said within yourself, not me,
Yep.
anybody but me. And a lot of times people will go and refer somebody else to their help, and it's like,
Yep.
that's
Mm-hmm.
something.
Interesting. But it's funny, you reminded me that there's this meme that I saw on the internet, and it was like this guy is asking God for a table, and the God is like, I gave you a tree.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
the thing. It's like you're waiting for this one thing, but it's like, let's use our mind a little bit. What
Mm-hmm.
can you make with a tree? You can make a table, you can make a chair, you can make it firewood. Like
Mm-hmm.
you can use it for whatever it is that you need. And so it's just having that open mind concept that
Mm-hmm.
things are truly here around you to help you. And, I have thousands, hundreds of conversations with women all the time, and they're like, yeah, nobody can help me. And I'm like, I'm chatting with you right now. I have all of these resources right now. You are like, I can tell you can't accept that help, right? So
Mm-hmm.
obviously those are not the people that I end up working with,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just to be like, if you are truly looking for help, be ready for it to show up in ways that you're not expecting.
Right, right, and that's funny. And this is why I love God so much because what you're saying. So God had given me something about crows and ravens, right? And so they look
Mm-hmm.
the same. They're both animals that stay a lot on the ground. But ravens are literally those that come to help you. And they don't look like you, they don't sound like you, they don't look like that, they don't even come in the form that you're asking God to help you with, but they're there to help you for that
Mm-hmm.
time and that season to get you to where you need to go because you're exhausted by the time a raven comes. It's like,
For
what's
sure.
going on? And so we don't recognize it, but we'll go to a crow who's going to come and take from us versus come and bring to us.
Yep.
So you don't want to go over here to this help. God is positioning you this, like you said, the tree, but then you're going to go and look at the grass.
Mm-hmm.
What
That's
is this
it.
going?
Yeah, it's even knowing what to look for, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what I do in terms of educating of natural, because the most common question I'll get is, what can I do to support my fertility naturally? And what people are
Mm-hmm.
looking for is some blank statement, some magic pill, something that I'm going to say. And my answer to it is like, well, it depends what's preventing you from getting pregnant naturally.
Mm-hmm.
And then I take them through the pillars that need to be in place in order for them to get pregnant naturally.
Mm-hmm.
What's your hydration like? What's your movement like? How are you sleeping? What's your digestion? How well are you? What are you eating? What kinds of
Mm-hmm.
food are you eating? What's your stress management? What's your menstrual cycle? And it's actually just doing a deeper dive into their health to help them understand what is preventing them from being able to get pregnant naturally.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not about going on the internet and searching Mr. Google to say, oh, I've been told I have bad eggs. What improves the quality of my eggs? But truthfully, that's what people do, right? They go and then, oh, CoQ10. So I'm taking CoQ10, I'm taking all the supplements and nothing is working. And my question is always, do you know why you have bad eggs? No, it's just I have bad eggs. The question is, why do you have bad eggs?
Right.
Do you think that you were just born with bad eggs? And even if you were, then let's look at the history of your mom and let's see, what did your mom do when she was pregnant? Did she have issues getting pregnant with you because your mother was carrying your eggs when she was pregnant? Like that's the generational thing. When you're
Mm-hmm.
pregnant with a female, you're carrying the next generation, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're carrying your grandchildren. And so you can go as far back as your grandma and say, hey, what was grandma's pregnancy like? Did she have issues getting pregnant? Was it a really stressful pregnancy? Were you breastfed? And so there's always an explanation. It's
Mm-hmm.
just sometimes it's not very easy to find. And we have to be courageous to even want to find it. Because
Mm-hmm.
again, some women are terrified to find out because they don't want to hear that they're infertile.
Right.
They're scared that that's what they're going to hear, but that's not it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you already got the diagnosis of infertility and maybe you didn't, you're already living out your fear. Let's see what could be causing it. And the fear is that you're not going to be able to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
But, our bodies are phenomenal. Our bodies can do incredible things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all it needs to heal is remove the thing that's preventing it from healing and then give it the nutrients that it needs to heal. Those are
Mm-hmm.
the two things. Remove the obstacle and give the nutrients.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the obstacle is harder to find.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we need to do, right? And just be courageous and diligent enough to be like, I'm willing to figure this out because this is important for me. So I can I don't want to say recreate, but let's break the generational pattern of passing on disease, thought patterns, emotions, all of that
Mm-hmm.
to our kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what we're doing when we don't break those patterns. And so it's a different way. It's a different way of bringing children into this world. And that's kind of my mission is to educate people a little bit more on that. So there's more intention behind it.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, and I want us to move a little further into this because it was something you said, and I mean, because we had a great conversation before when we first talked, and we talked about different little topics, and it made me think about, when you talked about, um, we got to be careful and intentional because when we are pregnant with our children, we need to make sure that our mood is correct. So we prepared our womb, we removed the blockages. Now we're carrying our babies, but we got to make sure that we're not stressed. We got to make sure that we are
Mm-hmm.
not doing things or eating or being in an environment that we shouldn't be in because our children um,
They're
will.
sponges.
Yes, even in the womb. And so then
In the womb,
when
even
our
more so. Yeah.
yeah, and so then when they're born and you're trying to figure out, I don't know why they're so cranky. Well, you were cranky the whole pregnancy.
For sure.
You did not do
Or you were
anything to
super stressed, right? You were super
stress.
stressed the whole time.
Right. And you're trying to figure out, are you angry or you're depressed? Oh, depression is one of the biggest ones that I've
Mm-hmm.
seen um, that my clients come to me with, especially when they have children. And they're saying, I don't know why my child is so depressed. They're just so suicidal. And one of the first questions I ask is, how did you feel when you were pregnant? And then
Yep.
I get the thing, oh, I didn't, their dad, we were going through such a horrible split, or he left me or something of that nature. And it's like, well, that's why
Yeah,
your baby,
it was a traumatic experience.
right. And so now your baby is
Mm-hmm.
living it out because it's in their DNA. It has
That's right.
altered their genetics. And I told you, I was writing a book and my editor was telling me that her husband had did a thesis and discovered that science has now determined and has said that what a woman goes through within her pregnancy, we have the ability to alter the genetics of our baby. So
Oh
where
yeah.
if we would have been healthy, if we would have been happy, our babies would not our babies would not be born with mental health issues. But
Yep.
because of what we dealt with while we were pregnant, now they are dealing with these things, and I believe that's why we have such a high rate now of suicides among our youth, mental health issues among our youth,
Yep.
schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and things of that nature, because they dealt with mothers that were dealing with emotional highs and emotional lows
Yep.
while they were pregnant.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm gonna take it even further than that. It's like the genes, the GN, the GNA, the DNA and the
Yeah,
genes
yeah.
are all setting before you even get pregnant. That's the egg and the sperm are the thing that's carrying your DNA. And
Mm-hmm.
so the quality, the women are born with all of their eggs, right? And so you can't change the quality, but you can't change the quantity, but the quality, the maturation process takes about 3 months. So the things that you're doing today are impacting the quality of that egg 3 months from now.
Mm-hmm.
And for males, it's about 2 months, 72 days. So let's say 2.5 months. So males literally make new sperm every single day. And that process, the maturation process, takes 72. So you can change the expression of which genes turn on and turn off 3 months before you even get pregnant. And now I call it like a filtration system. If you have a lot of, if like the water is really muddy, you're not just going to need one filtration system. It's just not one filtration and done. You might need a couple. And that's why I always do it in increments of 3, 6 months, maybe 9 months, maybe a year. When people say it took me a year to get pregnant, now it depends on what they're doing. So if you're just trying without changing anything,
Mm-hmm.
then I call that, the definition of insanity is doing
Yeah,
the same thing, expecting a
yeah.
different outcome.
Mm-hmm.
But when it takes somebody a year and they're tweaking and they're changing things, that's how long it took your body to heal. That's all it is. It's not that you would never, if you kept failing a test, would you just keep going back and taking that test, or would you go back and study and then retake the test?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I teach, is like, go back and study a little bit. The studying
Yes.
is you learning about your body. What does it need? What nutrients are missing? What testing do we need to do? What data do we need to collect to help you understand what's going on with your system? Because you're absolutely right to tie it in with all the mental and emotional. This is where it's not just a traumatic experience or just
Uh-huh.
because there's no amount of meditation. There's no amount of, calming exercises that you
Mm-hmm.
can do if you have a B12 deficiency
Yeah.
or if you have an iron deficiency. And so not knowing those things about yourself because you're just used to being tired. And when you have a mental issues yourself, mental health problems yourself, whether it's anxiety or depression or something more severe like bipolar and schizophrenia, there's usually an imbalance in your neurotransmitters. There's an imbalance in your nutrients. And so you're just passing that imbalance to your child.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're passing the physical imbalance, but also the coping mechanisms or the lack of coping mechanisms to your child. And so the child is just watching it. And now their nervous system is brand new. They're super, they're sponges, but they're also very sensitive to their environment, right? They're always watching. And so they become, it's just exaggerated where it took you years to accumulate that. Now, because you've accumulated the issue and you've just bam, passed it right on, that nervous
Mm-hmm.
system can handle it. And whether it's there's a lot of environmental toxins that are showing issues with IQ, ADHD, OCD, all of that stuff, which cause the deficiencies of B vitamins, magnesium, you name it, good gut microbiome flora, that when we start to fix those things, then the child feels better. The mother obviously needs to be addressed as well. They feel better. But one of the reasons that I got into fertility, because I'm obsessed with prevention.
Yeah.
Can I what can I prevent? Because I've seen, my grandma be sick for most of her life. And I've seen my mom diet ever since she was, I don't even not know her not dieting. And it's my genes are riddled with obesity and rheumatoid arthritis and heart disease and strokes and all of that jazz. But I don't believe any of that because my lifestyle is so different.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm super curious to see how my children grow up
Yeah.
because of the things that I've done. But I got tired of seeing sick kids, really young kids who were very, very sick. And it was just like, you look back into pregnancy and you would realize that the mother was really depleted. The mother was exhausted. She had so much stress. And now she can't even enjoy having her child because the child is so dysregulated, and that's really stressful for her.
Mm-hmm.
And so the awareness and prevention here is like, hey guys, let's put more intention around having children. We plan more to save for our house or even a car than we do for having kids. It's more like, okay, I think I'm ready. Let's try it. As
Yeah.
opposed to like, how are you doing? Like, are you at your best? Do you feel healthy and vibrant and energetic? Or are you carrying an extra 20 to 30 to 50 pounds? You're always fatigued. You have brain fog. You have, right? Like you're anxious, depressed. The child is not going to fix that. A child is going to make that worse actually. And so we need to we need to take a little bit more responsibility for our own health so
Mm-hmm.
we can bring healthier, happier children, because I believe that's what you want for yourself as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that is so good. I mean, that is so good because doctors do not sit you down and tell you any of this, and
No,
nobody else does. Nobody. I've this conversation that we're having on today is the first time I've ever had a conversation like this, and wish would have had it when I had my children.
yes,
If someone would have told me, and I believe my mother was probably trying to tell me, but I wasn't listening.
for
Um,
sure. Yeah,
to slow down, hey, slow down a little bit. But I worked my entire pregnancy, and I'm not going to say I was stressed, but kind of stressed because I'm going from one job to another job and just doing all these and just taking care of the house and just things of that
for sure.
nature, when I should have been taking more care of my body and
For
my
sure.
health, and perhaps some of the things that my children went through. So, um, my daughter was diagnosed with cancer, which was weird. Like we never and
Mm,
had heard of anyone in the family being diagnosed with cancer. So it was something very weird, and
yeah.
it was like, where did this come from and why did it come from? But when I thought and I sat down and I thought about some of the things, it was like, wow,
Yeah.
what did I do during my pregnancy what did I do prior to pregnancy? And then what was I doing during pregnancy that caused this stress on her body at
For
such a
sure.
at a very young age,
Yeah.
So I think this is very, very important for
Yeah.
soon
And
to be mothers.
Brianna, to kind of tie it in, we want to make sure we don't put blame on ourselves, because I think women are very good at doing that.
Yeah.
It's just giving yourself grace to say that you did the best that you could with the information that you knew. And so forgive yourself for not knowing the information that you know today. But once
Mm-hmm.
you know it, let's do better.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, I always try to break that tie that women will create around, I caused this, or it's because of me. And it's not because of you. It's not that you're broken or you're whatever, but something is wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not that you're broken or you're messed up, but something is broken. So let's find what that is and give you the tools that you need to help you fix that, so you feel empowered through the journey, as opposed to blaming yourself. Because it's, you know, some things we can't predict and some things we can, and all we can do is our best, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
And I think that's a key point, not blaming ourselves, because
Hmm.
we as mothers, I mean, I think it's almost sometimes hard not to, but I mean, because I love the Lord,
Always.
and it's like, but sometimes I look at my children and I'm like, Lord have mercy, that is me all day. That is
I
me.
trust me, we have our eldest. It's like she took the worst qualities from both my husband and I. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
really? Like just the worst ones?
yeah, yeah.
And then our second one, took the best ones. And you're
Uh-huh.
just like, how does that, why? Why would you do this to us?
Right,
But we all
right.
have lessons to learn, right? Our kids are going to
Yeah.
teach us things. And sometimes they teach us even before they come. They're
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, mom, I need you to be this person before you can meet me.
Yeah.
And that's such a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're, listening to this and struggling with infertility, and it's really hard not to blame yourself, it's really hard not to be bitter, it's really hard, not to be jealous, and it's very alone, you feel alone and isolated. And it's just, what do you need to do to take care of you? To who do you need to become to meet this little person you're dying to meet, you know? And usually it's not a medication that you need to take, although it works for some people, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a healing journey. you know,
Right.
if you want to heal, you need to address more than just the physical. You need to address the mental and the emotional, and you need support. It's not, I've never met anybody who said, yep, I did it all by myself. This is how I got successful. This is how I have this beautiful
Right.
family. Nobody ever did it by
Yeah.
themselves. And it's just a matter of prioritizing your needs, not being afraid to spend some money on yourself, to invest
Yeah.
into understanding who you are, because it's a direct return of investment. If I'm a better in health, if I'm in better health, I feel more confident. I feel more, you know, um, in control of my health. I can then go out and do things in the world, and I can make more money, or I can do the whatever it is that I need.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another shift that I really try to help women understand, that it's like, you are worth the
Mm-hmm.
investment. You are worth figuring out what's going on for you,
Mm-hmm.
because you are trying to bring a child into this world. And let's not underestimate that. Like, we make people, we've made
Mm-hmm.
all the people on this planet, and there's
Right.
8 billion of them now. Like, just think about that for a second. How mind blowing is that?
Mm.
We make people from scratch. And I think it's silly to think that we shouldn't plan for it. We shouldn't, we need to do a little bit more planning, a little bit more intention, and taking care of ourselves, because the truth is, the world is very different now.
Yes, it is.
And if you are doing the same things that you always used to do, and you're like, yeah, but I didn't change anything, that's the problem. You didn't change anything, but the world changed. And so I always have this battle with my parents of, yeah, but it's like, yeah, but the food that you're eating now is different.
Different.
Even if you're buying the same thing, the quality of it is different. So you need to change what you're doing based on what's going on around you, and adapt, as opposed to just like, but I didn't change anything. It's like, yeah, I know, that's the problem.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And look, it's hard to talk to the older generation, because they just can't
Of course.
comprehend what is
Yeah.
really going on. I wanted us to talk real fast, not fast, but I wanted us to touch on miscarriage. When one has gotten pregnant, they did all the proper steps, they're now pregnant, but then they miscarriage. I want us to talk about what goes through the mind, because you personally
Yep.
you have experienced this.
Yep.
What goes on through a woman's mind, and then I want us to discuss how that can become a blockage for future pregnancies.
For sure. So, first of all, miscarriage is a normal part of stepping into the fertility journey. Not every single egg, not every single sperm fertilization is going to be a successful one. So part of it is that, to prepare yourself, is to know that that is a very possible thing. Now, you can do some testing beforehand to show you if it's just like a fluke versus something that you are predisposed to. So I think when women just have one miscarriage, for the most part, the biggest thing that everyone's going to feel is shame and sadness, obviously, because now they have, it's the moment you're pregnant, your mind is, 10 miles ahead. Is it going to be a boy or a girl? What am I going to name the baby? What are we going to, you're starting to envision, what are they going to look like? There's so many things that your mind starts to race. But the truth is, we need to be just as present as we can be here. So and connect with the baby here. Because even if you lose the baby, the truth is, it's the thing that we do is we deny the emotions. Okay. So now I think that a lot of women know that miscarriage is possible. So they just, like, I don't want to say pretend that they're not pregnant, but they're afraid to connect to the baby because they're afraid to lose, and they don't want to go through the grief and the pain.
Mm-hmm.
And what I welcome is, go through the grief and the pain, go through the joy, go through the emotions, because they're there for a reason. That's what makes you human. And sometimes we feel guilty about being pregnant because we've had friends who are having issues. So it's really understanding what are the emotions that you are feeling, because if you don't give yourself the space to feel all the emotions when you go through the miscarriage, you're just going to carry that on to the next pregnancy. And you're
Yes.
going to step into the pregnancy feeling more anxious and more overwhelmed and more worried, as opposed to content and in control, knowing that a, a loss is very much possible. And we don't have the right to anything, right? Like nothing is given. And so all you can do is be present in the moment and be present with what you have now, what God gave you right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, you're pregnant. So enjoy that. And when you lose the pregnancy, make it, I'm constructing my miscarriage support course, because I find most women don't give themselves enough time to grieve, and they kind of just want to blow past the miscarriage and start trying again because like, oh, it was a bad one.
Mm-hmm.
Where if you just give yourself space and time to heal, because there's a lot that goes on, not just mentally and emotionally, but in the physical body. Your body was pregnant. It's not just a heavy period. It's not just you had a surge of hormones and then that hormones dropped. There was an immune system upregulation. There's a lot of inflammatory markers that go off when the miscarriage happens. So there's a lot of healing that your physical body needs. And then, of course, the mentally and emotionally. And I find when you give your body the physical needs that it has to help it support go through the miscarriage, it's easier to make the space for the mental and emotional component. But my advice is always to go through the full experience. Don't try to pretend that it didn't happen. Don't try to blow past it. I understand that sometimes you want to use a medical procedure, you want to use a medication because you don't want to wait for 2 weeks to have a miscarriage, because that could be very daunting. I get that, but part of the reason why I'm making a course is because there's things you can do naturally to help stimulate the miscarriage once you know you're having one, to help your body get rid of it on its own, because the healing journey from that is going to be much smoother than from a medical intervention or a medication. But give yourself the space, give yourself the time to heal, and don't just blow past it. Feel the emotions, if you don't know how, then this is when we hire help. This is when we get support to help you go through that, because it's important. It's important for you to feel it. It's important for you not to get stuck in it and to identify with it. Just know it's an emotion. When you feel sad, you are not sadness. You feel sad.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a big difference between that. And so what does sadness feel like for you? Okay. And know that it will pass. It always does. Right. But if you keep avoiding it and keep suppressing it, keep kind of pushing it down, it's just going to keep coming up. And usually it comes up as anxiety, because you're not allowing yourself to feel the deeper emotion. So you're anxious, you're overwhelmed, you're worried, you're buzzing.
Yeah.
And so giving yourself the space so you can step into the pregnancy, like I said, feeling more confident and more in control.
That is really good. I want you to tell us. So you're working on it now. I would love for people who need this, because I have a client now that I think she would benefit from this when you do finish
Mm-hmm.
it, because me and her, we talk, and it's good counseling. It's really good. Everybody get counseling if you need it.
I know, but honestly though, like I'm such a proponent, whether it's counseling, therapy, like find your person.
Yes.
People, when they ask me like, how did you go through the miscarriage? It's like, that wasn't my first experience. When I had it, it was like, honestly, I just got knocked on the head to be like, did you really think you had this figured out? Like, feel this,
Yeah.
be here. And so I did a 30-day meditation on grieving, and I journaled, and I did all of this stuff to heal and to feel and to come out on the other side a different person.
Mhm.
But that wasn't my first time. I spent 2 years in a counselor's chair every week when I was going through school. I would just go and I would dig and I would try to understand. And
Mhm.
it's life-changing, you guys. It's life-changing. And so, Brianna, I 100% support everything that you're doing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I love it, and a lot of times people don't understand the importance of it. And they think that you're just gonna come and and
Talk
I
about your
my
feelings, but
yeah,
you
no,
are, but you also need to understand where those
why?
things, why
Yes,
exactly,
yeah,
get
yeah,
to the
and
why.
yeah, and they're like, some of my people are like, well, what? Well,
This
let's
is not what I
dig.
expected.
Yeah, yeah. I'm like, let's dig a little more. And they're like, here she
Yeah,
come
yeah.
with that shovel. But
This is why you and I get along, but
yeah.
honestly, in my type of work, not only do I think that it's necessary, but like I demand that kind of work. If you truly want
Hmm.
to have a happy, and this is why not everybody is ready for it, because some
Yes.
people are like, no, I just want they're
Hmm.
not going to resonate with that message, where it's
Hmm.
like, no, we're going to dig. You are going to bring your shovel and we're going to dig and we're going
Oh
to
yeah.
figure out the physical aspect of it. Cause I
Hmm.
want to know what's going on in your gut. I want to know what's going on with your hormones. I want to
Hmm.
understand what you're eating, how you're sleeping,
Yeah.
because something is missing, but you're also going to do this other stuff.
Hmm.
And, a lot of the times I'll refer for really deep counseling because, again, I'm passionate about it and I can understand when someone needs it, but that's not my area of expertise. But we're
Hmm.
going to figure it out,
Oh
because
yeah.
if you're reliving this past trauma subconsciously
Hmm.
and carrying it in your womb, carrying it in your heart, carrying it in wherever,
Hmm.
we need to figure this out because it's depleting your physical body. And I can
That's
see
right.
it, like your physical body is depleted and there's no amount of supplements that I can give you to help you solve your trauma.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And see, I'm one of the ones that when I see that you're not going to do the work, you're not ready to do the work, I will
Mhm.
dismiss. I don't mind. And I tell
Yeah,
my clients
I
all
don't
the
mind. Yeah,
time that I'm not in it for the money. I'm in it because I want to see you do better.
for sure.
And you gotta want it. But so yeah, I'm actually working on getting a referral book together so that I can hand it out to my clients because I like to, like you, I'm gonna refer people out to who I know, okay, this is as far as I can take you, or let's couple this with this, and we can get you on the right journey. But I have really, really enjoyed this conversation because I think it is so much needed. Oh my gosh, it has me thinking about women, and a lot of the women that I have just really talked to, and how they feel like they're in this by themselves, and it's like
For
you're
sure.
not alone. You are
Not at
not
all. No,
alone.
my inbox is full every day of women who are struggling
Yeah.
and they feel alone, but
Hmm.
very much not alone at all. And I know you were going to say something about the miscarriage support program before we veered off.
Yes.
Um, I don't know if you have a train of thought before I was going to say something else.
Oh, yes. I just want you to tell. When do you think you will have that available for for the public?
For sure. Yeah. It's end of September is what I'm shooting for.
Oh, good.
To have it done I'll run a promo around Canadian Thanksgiving and then probably American Thanksgiving as well.
Okay.
But the program very much is just helping women understand that, first of all, there's 3 different types of miscarriages. You have 3 different options to have a miscarriage, what those options are, and then how to have a miscarriage at home. And then what you need to do to help you investigate post a miscarriage, how do you know when you're ready and how to feel that you're ready to start trying again, so you're going to step into it feeling prepared as opposed to anxious and worried and all of that jazz. So I will share all that information with you. We'll connect via email because I also would love to build my referral network.
Yes, yes. I mean, I'm excited because look, I've never had a miscarriage, but I didn't know that there were more than one. I didn't know that it took that long to have a miscarriage. Um, I mean, this is just for me because I've never experienced it. It's mind
Hmm.
blowing. And so
Hmm.
it's given me another level of compassion for women who have experienced going through a miscarriage.
Yeah,
You
and it's
know?
1 in 4. So it's not like the thing is like I said, when I shared the experience through my social media and I started to talk to women, it was like most of my audience was just like, oh yeah, I've had multiple and no one ever told me. And what the conventional medical world says is you have to have 3 before you can get any sort of testing. And it's like 3 miscarriages. 1 is hard enough. And so, like, do you need to do testing right after your first miscarriage? It depends on the person. You don't. I think you need to do some healing, and that's the things that I'm outlining in my program, like from the foods and the teas and the supplements that you can take and the lifestyle things that you can do to help your body
Mhm.
process the miscarriage, and not just the immediate miscarriage, but just the after effect too, right? The body needs time to heal. It needs
Yeah.
some time to heal. And for some women, it's 3 months, for some, it's 6 months, for some, it could be as long as 12 months. And so investigation component of it is I wanted to just run a quick check on myself. And I know that I'm fortunate enough to be able to do that. Many women are not, but it was like, okay, well, let me check my progesterone levels. Let me check my thyroid. Let me double check the autoimmune components. Let me check my vitamin D levels, like
Mm-hmm.
my, all these things that could be a really quick cause of a miscarriage. I just wanted to see if they were okay. And then when everything came back and it was like, yep, these are good. I was like, okay, it was just, I don't want to say it was a fluke. I was stressed.
Yeah.
So it was, for me, it was an empty sac. So there was no DNA, like it was a premature egg. There was nothing in there to replicate. So that was that's a huge one of the main reasons that happens is stress. You ovulate prematurely
Mm-hmm.
because your HPA axis, your cortisol is all dysregulated.
Yeah.
And so it was like, okay, I need to prioritize some things and I need to chill out. And, I just switched some stuff and all of a sudden my period lengthened and,
Yeah.
libido comes back and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, okay, my body feels ready again, and so it, you don't have to do things on the first one. You don't have to do things on the second, but it just depends on what it is that you want, right?
Yeah.
If you want to know and feel, because if something did come up, would I try again? Probably not until I fix the thing,
Yeah.
because if you're just like, no, I'll just try and see what happens. It's like, well, you're just putting yourself in a place where that probability is going to be much lower. Because I always say in fertility, like most of it is just like between you and God. Like
Yeah.
there's no guarantees,
Mm-hmm.
but what we do know is if we increase the probability increases when your
Mm-hmm.
thyroid is functioning well, when you're at an optimal weight, when you're sleeping well, when you're digesting well, when you're eating on a regular basis, when you don't have any autoimmune conditions, and so all we're doing is increasing that probability,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it. And so, and that's really what it's about, is measuring that probability,
Yeah. I always tell
increasing it up.
people, I never had a problem getting pregnant when I lost weight. It was boom, there it was. Even on birth control. That was something that was amazing to me. Uh,
That's,
so
yep.
sometimes, it's just the weight thing. But I wanted us, I'm just led real quick, if you don't mind. Something that is popping. I used to be a chaplain, and I used to work baby mother unit. And one of the saddest cases, and they would call me only, I never got called for mom is needing you, she's going in labor. I would have loved those calls. Like, call me for those.
I know.
But I would get the calls when mom delivered stillborns.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they call those rainbow babies. Or is it the babies
No,
that
that's the opposite. Rainbow baby is when you've got a baby after a long time of trying,
okay.
or a
Um,
lot of losses.
yeah, and so I have a couple of women that I have either followed on Facebook or that I have personally talked to who have lost a couple of
Mm-hmm.
babies, had stillborns, and they are at a place where they're thinking, okay, I can't, something is wrong with me. I can't carry a baby and, birth a live baby. What would your advice be to them?
I mean, my heart breaks. It's, it's one thing to have a miscarriage at 9 weeks. It's another to have a miscarriage, if you will, because really that's what it is. It's just a different name for it at 36, 38, 40 weeks. So I think giving yourself, it's going to take a long more time to grieve. I think, I hope that those women had a chance to do, whether it's a ceremony or just like a chance to be with their baby, even after stillborn. I think it's important to give women the space to be with our baby. So it's going to take time to heal. And when you've healed a little bit, and I would get the physical support that you need, because of course there's a lot of nutrients there's a lot of energy that went into growing this baby. And now you don't get the oxytocin and the dopamine and all the serotonin, all the good feel things after. So make sure that you support yourself physically as well. because mentally and emotionally, it's going to help you go through the grief more. And then I think it's doing a little bit of investigation, because sometimes it's just a freak accident. And sometimes there's things that we could do to prevent. So there's a lot of research in the reproductive microbiome, we call it. So bacteria, basically humans are walking bacteria. We have more bacterial cells than we have human cells. And so it's important that that bacteria is in harmony with one another. And if we have a lot of pathogenic bacteria, so whether it's yeast, other kind of viruses, strep, staph, E. coli, parasites, you name it, if it's not supposed to be there, it's going to cause a lot of issues. And because the reproductive microbiome, right, that's the room that the baby grows in, if there's hostility there, it just makes it a hostile environment for the baby to thrive. And usually in stillborn, there is some sort of infection present. There is something, but like I said, there's freak accidents where the baby just flipped and wrapped their head around the cord. And so the main thing that I would say to those women is that you didn't cause it. And it's such a painful experience to go through. But if we can find light, and we can find, when God closes a door, he opens a window, and see what we need to learn from this experience. And you're very right to not want to try again, or not to have another child, but make sure that you heal from that experience, right? From physically, but also mentally and emotionally. And there's a lot of herbs. There's a lot of things that you can do to help you process that grief, to help you process whatever it is that happened for you, and know that for everybody, it's different. Everybody experiences a loss. It's different. Nobody can tell you. You can share the experience. You can share what happened for you, but we're all going to experience differently. So it's up to you to really fully dive in and feel those emotions, and then reevaluate and see what you want to do. But if after experience like that, I personally wouldn't want to do it alone. I would want to have a team of people behind me that are going to help me, that I'm going to feel supported, right? We talked about that 80% of people are more likely to give birth to a live baby when they feel supported. And I had a patient that she had 4 recurrent losses really fast. And she just kind of was in the state, I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to keep trying. And when we talked, I was like, listen, if you're not ready for another loss, you're probably not ready for another pregnancy. And she was like, you're right. We're going to do this. We're going to do some testing. But we had that conversation after she ovulated. So they already got pregnant, but she's carrying past where she's lost.
Wow.
Because she feels supported. She has places where she lean onto, and it's way more frantic than it would be if we had a little bit more time, right? Because it's like now we're just trying to prevent, to make sure that it doesn't happen. But the support that she feels, that she knows she can go somewhere and she can bounce ideas, and, oh, my doctor said this, and it's like, no, go here. Oh, okay, I'll do this instead. And then, oh, here's what I can do naturally. And, she has an OBGYN, she needs a doctor, she needs progesterone, she needs estrogen, like she needs medication. So like I said, it's a lot more frantic, but she feels supported, and that's the big difference. And so when you've experienced a big loss like that, and you're thinking about trying again, give yourself and your body time to heal. But then also I would do things personally. I would get a health assessment. I would have somebody on my team who makes me feel really supported, and, helps me explain everything. So I have that knowledge and confidence to go through it, one more time.
And I know working in those units and being called for those calls was very, like I said, it was never one that was never ever difficult. But I believe the way that a mother is supported after the loss helps her, like you said, to
Huge.
to really get, because I never went in and spoke of the child as though the child was gone. I always asked, what's the baby's name? I
Yep.
push for pictures. I push for, I wanted to know, was the baby definitely not breathing? Because, there's, after so many minutes, if the baby was breathing, let's get a birth certificate. Let's get handprints. Let's get footprints. Whatever we need to do, because that makes the mother feel supported.
Yep.
You are not just looking at me and throwing me to the side, but